Welcome to Rhythm 4. We're going to start off by talking about dotted notes, specifically the dotted half note, and the dotted half note is the only dotted note you're going to have to worry about for this entire course and this entire level 1, all the books, all the work pages. We're only ever going to be looking at a dotted half note. There are other dotted notes, but we're not going to worry about those for now. So let's look at how we make a dotted half note.
Using pages from my #1 bestseller book, The Best Music Theory Book for Beginners, that sold over 5,000 copies. My name is Dan Spencer. I'm your music mentor. The full playlist with over 100 music theory lessons is in the video description. I recommend watching them in order. And now, back to the lesson.
So we have a stem, we have a note, and sure enough, living up to its name, we've got right here the dot. So open note head, stem, and dot. Now let's talk a little bit about the math of what that dot means. A dotted note is worth 1.5 times the written note's rhythmic value. Let's break that down. So what we're saying is that whenever we have a dot on a note, right here, we got the dot, this equals 1.5 times that. 1.5 times the written note's value. So we have a half note, which is worth how many beats? 2. Another way of thinking about it is and 1.5 times 2 equals 3. Another way of thinking about that is 1.5 plus 1.5, which equals 3. One more way of thinking about this math is to quite simply divide the written note value in half and add it to itself. So we look at the written note value. That equals 2. Half of 2 is 1. 1 plus 2 equals 3. So whenever you see a dotted note, it's going to be worth 1.5 times the written value. And we can see right here, half note gets 2 counts, quarter note gets 1 count. 1 plus 2 equals a dotted half note, which is 3. Let's break that down one more time before we talk about how to write half notes. So, a dotted note is like a regular note. It just has a dot. Now, what the dot means is that you take half this note's value right here. So whatever the dot is for, this dot is on a half note. So you take the half note, you say to yourself, how many beats is a half note worth? That's 2 beats. What's half of 2? 1. Add those together. 2 plus 1 equals 3. And that's how you understand how many beats a dotted note is worth. I'll see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we are going to talk about how to write dotted notes, and we're going to do this lesson in 2 parts. The first part, I'm just going to talk you through it. I'm going to point out some things from the book, and in the second part, I'm actually going to write some dotted half notes with you in real time so you can follow along and do it with me. So, all you're going to do to write a dotted note is you're going to write the regular note. So in this case, half note. You write the note value, half note. Number 2, you write a small dot right next to the note head. Number 3, if the note head is on a line, you write the dot above the line. And if the note head is in a space, you write the dot in the space. Because you wouldn't want to write the dot on the line because then you might miss it if you put the dot right there. Obviously, you can see that one because it's green, but I think you understand my meaning. That if it was right on the line, you might miss it. So, if the note head is on the line, the dot goes above the line. If the note head is in the space, the dot goes in the same space as the note head. So now we're going to write some half notes together. Follow along with me. We're going to start by writing a note head on line 3 of the staff. Boom. I'm going to write a stem. Boom. Then we're going to write a dot. And remember, because the note head is on a line, we're going to write the dot above the line. There you go. That's it. Let's try writing a half note on space 2. All right, so let's put our note head right in the space. Then let's write the stem. And then because it's in the space, the dot's going to go in the same space as the note. And that dot's actually a little close. You can space the dots out just a little bit more. There you go. That's better. That's some breathing room there. All right, I'm going to write out a couple more. I'm not going to talk through it. I'm just going to give you a demonstration. Follow along, pause the video, whatever you need to do. And dots above the line or in the space. One more. In the space. And there you go. That is how you write dotted half notes. I will see you in the next lesson. In this lesson, we're going to talk about how to write dotted half notes in measures. Now, just like we had rules about where we could write our whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, whole rests, half rests, and quarter rests, we're also going to have some rules about where we can write dotted half notes. Now, the first thing to understand about dotted half notes is just like regular half notes, they can cross the divide between beats 2 and 3. So you can write a dotted half note on beat 1 or beat 2 in 4/4, or you can just write it on beat 1 in 3/4. So you can write a dotted half note on beat 1 or 2 in 4/4 because it can cross that imaginary divide between beats 2 and 3. Now you'll notice that we have a strongest and a weak beat color here for dotted half notes. Now keep in mind that that weak beat only works for 4/4 because we go strongest, weak, strong, weakest. That leaves us 3. So we have weak, strong, weakest. That's 3 beats, 3 counts. You can write a dotted half note starting on beat 2 in 4/4, but you cannot write a dotted half note starting on the weak beat of 3/4. Because think about it, 3/4 we have strongest, weak, weakest. If you wrote a half note here, there's only 2 beats left. You'd have an extra beat, which would make it 4 beats, which, as you may recall from your correct and incorrect measure math examples, would be no good. So dotted half notes can only go on the strongest beat, or beat 1 of 3/4, and they fill up the entire measure. So let's look at some examples here. We can see in 4/4, it is correct. We have already drawn for us that imaginary divide between beats 2 and 3, and we already have an arrow showing, yes, that dotted half note starts on beat 1 and can go all the way through to beat 3, and it's totally cool, and it can go past that imaginary barrier. It is also correct to write a dotted half note in 4/4 on beat 2 on the weak beat because it can pass through that imaginary divide between beats 2 and 3. Lastly, but not leastly, it is correct to write a dotted half note on beat 1 in 3/4. And that being said, do not make the mistake of writing a dotted half note on beat 2 with like a quarter note here, because that would equal 4 beats. And as we know from our measure math, no good. Also, do not write a dotted half note on beat 3 in 4/4 because that would equal 5. Let's say we have, a quarter rest there. All right, that equals 5. So no good. So now what you can do is you can actually start using dotted quarter notes in your original rhythmic compositions for either 4 measures or 8 measures. Just remember to use them on strongest beats and weak beats only in 4/4. I will see you in the next lesson where we're actually going to clap and count some dotted half notes. See you there. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about how to clap, or rather ta, dotted notes. Now, the reason why we're going to ta, we're actually going to use our voice to go ta. Try that one time. Right. So we go ta. And that is so that we can actually hear the full rhythmic duration of the note. So think about it this way. If we just clap 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, was that a whole note or was that a quarter note? You can't tell because I just clapped on the 1. You could hear the attack happened on count one, but you couldn't actually hear the duration of the note. So hopefully by now you've done a little bit of clapping, a little bit of counting. You understand how the whole thing works. So we're going to take the counting with your mouth out of the equation. We're actually going to use your mouth to say ta for different notes. So for example, if I was to ta a whole note, so metronome at 60, feel the pulse, and here I go, ta. See how I held that out for 4 counts or 4 beats, right? That's a whole note. Now this would be 2 half notes. Ta, ta. Now these would be chord notes. Ta, 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 ta. This would be a dotted half note. Ta, 3. So what we're going to do now is actually ta examples 23 and 24. Here we go. Going to listen for the pulse. Double check the time signature. 4, 4 are at the count. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta, 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 ta. Excellent. Let's do example 24 now. Okay, this is the first time you've seen 4 lines of music all in a row. So keep in mind, from first line to second line to third line to fourth line, left to right, top to bottom, just like you would with a book. Okay, so listening for the pulse. Again, it's 60. Double checking the time signature, that's a 3. So my counting is going to be for 3, not 4, but 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Ta, 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 ta. I will see you in the next lesson. Oh, but it's not over yet. Click here to watch the next video lesson or up here for the full video playlist.